Time for some more Chiefs football talk here on the Red, Gold, and Bold. Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, Soren Petro with you as we talk a lot of wide receivers. Rashee Rice supposed to be healthy for training camp, out of jail at that point. We assume what will his role be at that point? Xavier Worthy, is it too late to think a breakout year could be coming for the former Chiefs first-round pick? Jalen Royals has had some moments running with the first team in camp. What do we expect from him? Tyquan Thornton, Cyrus Allen. We're talking about the wide receivers in general here. Esa Pole is getting some time with the ones. What's that mean for him and Jalen Royals when it comes to that right tackle spot? L'Jarius Sneed, Chiefs looking at taking him back in to the fold at the defensive backs. And how about those young players? We got Sneed coming in, a guy with a bum knee and an older player. They're looking at him. What does this say about what's going to happen with the young players on the Kansas City Chiefs? We talk about it right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you, Curtis. We appreciate it. We're talking Chiefs football here on a Friday, 10 a.m. You can catch us via the podcast. We stream live. You can be a part of the conversation there in the chat room. 10 a.m. on Fridays, 9:30 p.m. on Tuesdays. That's Central Time. Guys, let's get started talking about the wide receivers, OTAs, mini camps going on. They're going on without Rashee Rice. Sam, where does Rashee Rice fit into this mix when he does come back? What should we expect? Is he wide receiver one by default? Or could we see him have to work his way back up the ranks?
I just it would be stunned if he's not working as the number one wide receiver when he comes back. And I think the Chiefs are going to have all the temptation in the world to say he's our most talented guy. He's our best guy. We're going to build the wide receiver room around him. I mean, I was looking up some stats for Rashee Rice just over his last 18 games, which, by the way, is spread across 3 years. He has 963 yards after catch over his last 18 games, which is the most over any player for any 18-game stretch in the last 8 years. His 120 catches are most of any player over an 18-game stretch over the last 3 years that's not Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Malik Neighbors. He's kept great company on the football field. It's the other stuff that is how do you not realize that you can't depend on this guy to be available? He's played 12 out of the last 37 games. People are going to get tired of me saying it, but the Chiefs have to build their game plan for a season-long game plan, knowing that is real. If Rashee Rice is out in the middle of the season, I don't want to hear the Chiefs complaining that he was going to be the focal point of their offense and what now? The answer should be, we prepared for this over the summer, because we not only knew this was possible, but we knew that the evidence showed that this was likely.
I like that. I like the way you put it, Jeff. No more excuses. No more oh, we're stunned. We can't believe it. We built everything around a guy who never plays. What bad luck. They do have no excuse. So what should they do? Should he not be the number one option? Because you should plan on him not playing anywhere near 17 games.
Well, I just don't know what the other option would be. And so, yeah, he's the number one option by default, right? I mean, you talk about, you listed off some of those receivers, Tyquan Thornton, Xavier Worthy, Cyrus Allen, and none of those guys have the skill set to be a number one receiver. And so that's what this is the hole they dug for themselves, and hoping and believing that the numbers Sam just rattled off about what he's done over certain stretches of his career can happen in a 17-game schedule time and time again. And it's just, I don't believe it's going to happen. And I think you have a hard time finding a majority of people who follow the Chiefs who believe that happening as well. I think he's limited. I'd be honest with you, numbers aside, I have a hard time remembering the most impactful plays he's had going back aside from that rookie season. I remember a lot of drops last year in critical moments. I remember some, a fast start a couple of years ago. But aside from that, it's just been too little and too many problems off the field. And so I do think he'll be there, number one, but I'm not expecting a whole lot from him.
But if he does play, do you expect number one like production? To Sam's point about where the production's been when he plays, if he is out there, if he can keep on the straight and narrow and stay on the football field, do you expect him to be a, to Sam's point, very productive receiver?
I don't, because I think a lot depends on where Mahomes is at health-wise and what they're doing offensively. I think they were able to get away with some things, the last couple of years when people were expecting a certain level of Chiefs offense that doesn't exist anymore. I think that they're trying to reset who they are offensively. And I do think that Travis Kelce being a prominent factor helped him out a lot. I think once you begin to say, okay, he's a guy we got to take away, we can have one guy deal with Kelce, we can have one guy deal with the other guys, it becomes a different story. And so he's not the kind of receiver who can deal with extra attention. I don't think he's the kind of receiver who can line up against top corners in this league and win consistently. And so, no, I'm not expecting him to be what we thought he was going to be a couple years ago.
Go ahead, Sam.
Well, I think there's like a trick answer to this as far as like, is either by default number one. To me, this should only reinforce that like Kenneth Walker is your number one. Like your number one is your running game, because it's because your quarterback is coming off of the most serious injury he's ever had. And because you don't have, like, this is a reminder that you don't have reliable options in your receiving game. That includes the fact that Travis Kelce is yet another year older, and that this conversation is the reality is Rashee Rice is by far your most talented wide receiver. Even though he's hurt, you're going to feature him in the offense. Like what they should do and what they like, we all agree on what they will do, right? I mean, we all agree that Rashee Rice will be plugged in as their number one wide receiver, despite spending summer in jail requesting to get out to have special visits for rehab of his knee in the hospital. Yeah. That's where the Chiefs' number one wide receiver, who's never had 1,000 yards in his life, who's played 12 of the last 37 games, currently sits right now. It only reinforces the point that you've got to establish a better running game and not have this be what you need to improve an offense that hasn't finished better than 15th in scoring in 3 years.
By the way, Jeff, I know you've got friends in law enforcement. Allowing, rehab to go on while serving a jail sentence that was expedited because you didn't live up to the terms of your parole. Yeah. Is this the norm? Is this how it is for everybody?
Well, I don't know what that looks like.
I was going to say, can we? The answer is this: the norm is definitely a no.
Exactly. Yeah, the whole thing.
None of this is normal.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Yeah, and I don't know what. I doubt he's having the kind of equipment he would find in the Chiefs facility or a normal rehab place inside of a jail cell. And so, but I think there are exercises you can do, and he probably can have some things, bands or whatever, that can help assist him. I think that's probably part of what Andy Reid's talking about. I do want to. Somebody asked me about, do I think Rashee Rice is bad? No, I don't think he's a bad player. My point is impact, and it's hard to find him having the kind of impactful moments. I think he had one game. I forget which one. Maybe it was the Colts game where he had some big plays and had a big game. But aside from that, Dallas game he had some drops. Denver game he had drops. Like he has not lived up to the what you want a number one receiver to be in terms of what a George Pickens or a Jamar Chase or those guys, Justin Jefferson, do week in and week out.
Yeah, I think we've seen him look really productive. His best moments have been his rookie year and the first few games of his second year. And we're going to find out if he is healthy. I mean, that's what I think the knee throws a wrench into it, and disrupting the rehab process throws a wrench into it, because if you look back to when he's been healthy, he has been very productive. But Is he the guy that's going to do all the things you need to do? Like, I think you'd wonder about the rehab process if he wasn't in jail. And now this, I don't know, maybe this shines a light on his rehab process. And so maybe it'll inspire him that, well, I've got to really work at this because everyone's going to know it was my off the field crap again that kept me from doing it. I don't know where he's going to be, but yeah, like he's shown moments of being very productive, but he's also now shown what it is he does, right? Like to Sam's point about how few games he's played, there is an element of, in my opinion, that like, okay, like we didn't know what he was. Let's focus on Travis Kelce. Let's focus on these other things. Now he's the focus, and we haven't seen him really produce in that point. We'll see if he's the focus for defenses to try to stop this time around. Is there any hope of a breakout season, Sam, for Xavier Worthy? That year 3, and we'll get into what ChadO'Shea brings to the equation, but any hope that Xavier Worthy lives up to a first-round draft pick?
You're reminding me, we should call this Rashee Rice a breakout year regardless of what he does on the field. But Xavier Worthy looks good in the summer. I actually think what is most telling about Xavier Worthy is he looks like really happy to be out there. I don't know that I saw a ton of that from him a year ago. But I just think the reality, like we have to recognize, is he took a pretty large step back in year 2. And I think where that really shows is the fact that he wasn't a playmaker with the ball in his hands the way he was as a rookie. I mean, as a rookie, he had 416 yards after a catch. In 2025, his second year, it was less than half that number. He had 207. I mean, he wasn't a weapon with the ball in his hands, though, and he has to be a weapon with the ball in his hands because he doesn't catch the ball deep. The reason he was brought in was to improve the downfield passing game. Like downfield passes are 20 yards downfield. He only has 20 catches in his career, 10 yards downfield, 20 in 31 games in his career. Like he's not this downfield threat, which means he's got to be a weapon with the ball in his hands. And last year we just didn't see either.
Jeff, is he not catching the ball down the field because they don't call any plays for him to get downfield, or is it because he can't beat press jams? Is it what do you see as to why this guy that they clip for because of the fastest 40 time and combine history doesn't seem to be able to put the speed on the field?
Well, I think some of this is just nuance and growth, and the people in the comments that have talked about ChadO'Shea and what he can bring to it, and we'll talk about that as well. But I think he's got to learn how to be a professional receiver. And I agree with Sam. I think that what scares you about Xavier Worthy, aside from he's really fast? I mean, he's not somebody who's dynamic with the ball in his hands. It actually surprises me how little shake he has to his game. Like when Tyreek Hill gets the ball in his hands, like it's like scary. Like he just needs a little bit of space and he might just go 80 yards with it. Xavier Worthy's not that kind of player. I think you talked about last year there was a play where he caught the ball in the middle of the field and he was, instead of running away from the defender, he was running to him. I forget what game it was, but it was just
Dallas on Thanksgiving late night game.
Yeah. So the instincts, that kind of stuff. He's just not that type of player, and so I think they drafted him with the idea of here's this guy who's electric as far as running, but they can't take advantage of that skill. And without that, like everything else is just not that great about him. And so I always feel like when I think about Xavier Worthy, like who else in the league with his body type, his skill set is who would he compare to? And there's really nobody. He either needs to be somebody who's like a shifty slot receiver type player or just a burner who just takes the top off a defense. And he's neither. And so it's hard to figure out how he fits. And I think that's part of his own problem. Like what is his identity as a receiver? That's what he's trying to figure out.
In practice, I think what's really illuminated, look, 40 time is a really important metric, but I just think it gets overblown. And to me, like one of the most glaring examples has been this year, media, we've only had 2 windows to watch practice this year, one time last week and one time this week. We'll get 3 more times next week. Kenneth Walker runs at a different speed than Isaiah Pacheco did a year ago. When you go look at it, Isaiah Pacheco actually ran a 4.37. Kenneth Walker ran a 4.38. They do not run at the same speed on the football field. And the reason being is that when Kenneth Walker shifts his direction, he's still running the 4.38. that he's not taking these little chop steps and getting his momentum back up. That's an Xavier Worthy, Tyreek Hill difference too. Is like when Tyreek Hill shakes and moves and cuts, there's no slowdown to his game at all. And I think what we've seen from the Chiefs wide receiver room in general over the last, since 2019 with McCole Hardman, with Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and now with Xavier Worthy, is that speed down the field vertically does not always equate to speed everywhere and every time you've got the ball in your hands and every time you're running the route.
I think that's a great point. I mean, I saw a video put out by somebody in Detroit basically showing Jalen Gibbs going through a drill and Isaiah Pacheco, and they said, what do you know? What's the difference here? And what it was how much quicker Gibbs got through the drill. Like, we're not even talking about tacklers. We're talking about just going through pads, all the extra steps that it took Isaiah Pacheco to navigate through the pads that were on the ground and then through the pads that he was running through. And again, it's just a drill. And it still, I mean, it just magnified it. And I think that's a great parallel to what Xavier Worthy does, because the 40 times great if you're running in wide open space, but you got to get to the wide open space. And that's why a lot of teams didn't have him valued as a first round pick, Jeff, is that he didn't have the strength. He didn't have the body mass to beat jams. And that means you got to use him in motion. You got to do things to try to get to where the corner can't square him up. So hopefully he can beat that release. And, like what player does he look like? I remember when he was drafted, I said, look, I hope the idea is, and the upside was that he has all the receiver skills, right? He wasn't just a speed guy, that he knew the nuances of being a receiver at Texas and had a 1,000-yard season. And so he had speed, but also receiver skills. So the upside was Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah.
And I said, the fear is that you just spent a first-round pick on Oz Hakeem.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt that he's a lot more like Oz Hakeem, who people don't remember, the greatest show on turf with the Rams and Kurt Warner and that crew. He was the definitive fourth receiver on that team. And that's what, they're using him more than a fourth receiver, but I don't know that his play warrants it. We haven't seen real receiver skills from the guy, have we?
No. And as I think about the comparison, Jalen Waddle is a guy he probably could be like, who's, a smaller guy, but who's been obviously very productive and is very fast. But Khalil Shakir from the Bills is somebody who he could be like. The way they use him, and I'm sure Khalil Shakir is not as fast as Xavier Worthy is, but you see a lot of the jet sweeps and the throws in the flat, but he can go down the field and make a play for you. But you're right. It's like they drafted him with the same mindset that they drafted McCole Hardman, with the same mindset that brought in Marquez Valdez-Scantling, which is the speed is going to scare people. And this is not a league now where speed does that anymore. This is a league that is much more about 1980s, 1990s NBA basketball, where you're just banging and you're trying to get space and you're trying to elbow people. And it's just a lot of people on the field now have speed. The linebackers have speed. The edge rushers have speed. There's a lot of guys out there who can run. And so I think that's the weird part about him now was he drafted at a time when they couldn't really forecast where the league was going. And is he somebody who now can't really find a place because his skill set doesn't meet what this league needs from receivers nowadays?
I'll just the one point of optimism, if you want to have about Xavier Worthy, is he obviously played injured last year because it was one series into his season where Travis Kelce took him out, and it turns out in the offseason he needed to get that corrected. He had to have surgery. He has a yellow no contact jersey, which I will say it's a no contact camp already. So seeing him and Jaden Hicks wear yellow no contact jerseys but still participate in all the drills, I guess it's just, hey, be extra careful with this guy, because he's participated in everything from my vantage points. But I'm just going to say, if you want to have optimism about Xavier Worthy, he did not a year ago.
Yeah, that's the hope, is that we're going to see that the breakout year was stunted because he was hurt, and now we'll get the breakout year that a lot of receivers do have when they get to that second year. We want to talk about some of the other receivers, talk about ChadO'Shea. We'll do it after you hear from our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Concrete season is in full swing, and asphalt paving is revving up. So right now is the time to get your property on the schedule with Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Whether you need new concrete work, a parking lot repaved, crack filling, seal coating, or full asphalt installation, their experienced crews handle it all right here in Kansas City. Don't wait until the rush hits. Call today for a free bid and secure your spot before the calendar fills up. Get the process started right now at GannAsphalt.com. That's GannAsphalt.com. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lots. Italian Delight was the first restaurant to bring true New York-style pizza to Kansas City almost 50 years ago. They sell whole pies or pizza by the slice, or enjoy their classic strombolis, calzones, and sausage rolls. Sandwich lovers, check out their lineup of hot and cold subs, the combo, the meatball, or the Philly cheesesteak, just to name a few. And don't forget the pasta. Their famous lasagna and classic chicken Alfredo always hit the spot. And if you're hungry for lunch, check out their daily lunch specials, starting at under $10. Italian Delight can even cater your next work function or party. Dine in, carry out, or delivery, it's Italian Delight. Located just 3 minutes east of Kansas Speedway at 8145 State Ave in KCK. Check out the menu and order online at ItalianDelightKS.com. Kansas City's own Italian Delight. Sam, are you encouraged, if you're a Chiefs fan, by what you're seeing from Jalen Royals, who was a virtual no-show in year one for the Chiefs after being taken in the 4th round last year?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we've only been allowed out there for 2 days of 6 practices. So, relatively speaking, we haven't seen the majority of practices, and it's super early. I would just say he hasn't been on my list of standouts from the 2 days that have been open. I mean, he's certainly gets time with Mahomes, and he's made some catches. There was one catch he made in the first day we were out there early on that Mahomes was jacked about, that he saw the play the same way he did. We're not permitted to say exact routes and that stuff, but Mahomes was really pumped that he recognized coverage in a certain way. So I think that you could see points of growth if you want to, but eager to see what he's got in training camp.
Yeah, what do you think? What are the odds Jalen Royals takes a big step forward, Jeff?
Well, one depends on opportunity. I don't think any of us know what Jalen Royals is. I think we knew what we hoped he could become when they took him in the 4th round, but this is a blind spot for the Chiefs, and they've had a hard time. As much as they got away with the Tyreek Hill trade and won 2 championships without him, they have not been great at developing receivers since then, right? I mean, we can all agree on that. And this is one more example of it. And so even if he's not what they'd hoped he'd be right now, I would hope they'd have a plan to try to get him into the mix. And why I say it depends on how things play out. I don't think any of us last year was sitting there thinking Tyquan Thornton was going to be a guy that could be a big boost to this offense, but he got an opportunity, partly because of injuries, partly because of necessity, and he made the most of it. And so I would hope that they would start looking at guys like Jalen Royals and say, we brought this guy in, let's try to find a way to develop him and get the best out of him. And if you can't do that, then why are you drafting guys like him who can't play? And again, I hate to go around the league and compare apples to oranges, but I think about the Rams. They're 2 of their best receivers. Their 2 best receivers in the last 10 years are guys. One was a 3rd round pick in Cooper Kupp, and one was a 5th round pick in Puka Nacua. And they saw things in those guys, and they had a plan to develop them in a scheme that could maximize what they did. And so just as we talked about Xavier Worthy, where is his skill set fitting into the way the NFL is going, they need to find out Jalen Royals' skill set can fit into it, because he's a 2nd-year player, was a 4th round pick.
Yeah, it is. When you look at how they've put the receivers together, Sam, sometimes it feels like, well, McCole Hardman was drafted because they weren't sure what was going to happen with Tyreek Hill. Like we've got what we want the offense to look like, and we go draft players to fit what we want the offense to be, as opposed to drafting best receivers and adapting the offense to the receiver. Where do you think beyond those 2 guys, the 2 biggest investments have been a 1st and 2nd round pick in Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice? We mentioned Royals as a 4th round pick. Like, what about Tyquan Thornton? They kept him from getting away, gave him a multiple year. Cyrus Allen, they take in the 5th round this year.
Yeah.
Is there production somewhere else at the receiver position that they can get?
Yeah, I actually discount the notion that they only take the same type of wide receiver. I mean, Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy are nothing alike. Jalen Royals and Cyrus Allen over the last 2 years are nothing alike. Like, they're built nothing alike. They get open very differently. Their skill sets are different.
I think you could say that McCole Hardman was I've had
I
conversations.
totally agree with you on the McCole Hardman replacing the.
What about
missing
Jalen
Tyreek
Royals
Hill.
for Rashee Rice? Rashee Rice, I mean, I think that was a lot of people's thought was, okay, Royals a little bit bigger receiver. Rice is going to be suspended for 6 games. We need a guy like that. Was he just drafted to, okay, worst case scenario, we got a guy that physically looks the part of Rashee Rice?
Well, I think that's possible, but my point is those are 2 totally different players. And I actually think when we talk about the fact that they only draft the same player, we're blaming it on the drafting process and excusing the coaching aspect of it, because I think the Chiefs have failed all types of wide receivers in development over the last 3 or 4 years. It's been the Jalen Royals types. It's been the Xavier Worthy types. It's been the Sky Moore types. Like those three guys that I just mentioned are nothing alike in their skill set. And all 3 of them, we've talked about the issues with them. Why haven't they had the breakout? And there's still time for Royals in particular. Like Jeff mentioned, he's still just a second-year wide receiver. But I think we need to and this is what gets into our next question, Soren, and maybe we can combine this with ChadO'Shea. But this gets into the fact that we should find out whether or not this is a drafting problem or whether or not this is a development problem. Like this change at wide receiver coach should help us figure that out.
Which wide receiver benefits most from having a veteran receiver coach, Jeff? Is there one guy that you look at and say, okay, he's getting the coaching he needs. We're gonna see the fingerprints of ChadO'Shea all over him, and he's got the best chance to take a step forward.
Well, ironically, I think it's Rashee Rice, just because I think it's about being a professional, right? It's about how you approach the job, away from the building and inside the building. And so I think of all the guys we just listed, he's got the most talent, which I said that's why he's the number 1 guy. But as far as the attitude and the approach to the craft, he's not there yet. And that's what, Sam made a really good point a couple weeks ago. I forget which podcast it was. We talked about what the Chiefs need. And the question he had was, who's going to be the stars? Rashee Rice needs to be a star for this team to be good. He can't just be an okay and above average player. He needs to be a star because they don't have that many stars left. And I think it was Matt Derrick was on your air, Soren, talking about just the culture in the locker room. And he thought that a guy like Rashee Rice wouldn't have these issues. Well, the culture is Rashee Rice now. He's a big part of the culture. Like if you're wearing T-shirts to defend him on the field, he's one of your influential people.
Yeah, good point.
And so he needs to be a star for you. And I think O'Shea, if he can turn him into a star, that would be a huge win for this team.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the biggest things you bring in ChadO'Shea is to actually change the culture. I mean, I think you want to change the culture of that room specifically. So I think that's a great point.
Yeah, like Joel said, Rice doesn't seem like the take good advice guy in all aspects of life.
Well, part of that is like you want to surround someone like that with the right people, and that includes the people in your building as well. Now, I mean, obviously, most prominently, it includes the people outside the building, but it also includes the people in the building who are giving them day-to-day advice too.
Yeah, I think it's you'd love to have Larry Fitzgerald there counseling. A Rashee Rice, like, would he look better if you had a guy who's done it right, worked hard, had that career? Yeah, absolutely, and that's been one of the flaws. And I think, but it also I do think in defense of the Kansas City Chiefs, one, you'd like a stronger coach in the room. Well, when you play to the Super Bowl every year, it's hard. All the coaches are hired, right? We've talked about that back in the past, that, one of the reasons why they redid the coaching staff is they were at the point where you could hire the best coaches. They were out. They were on the front edge of hiring coaches, and they have been picking towards the bottom of every round. And so if you're like, well, we want a certain talent level, it comes with some risks. Again, they're in the get it right business. That's not an excuse. There have been good receivers that were taken after players that they've taken. Lad McConkey was put up there as, how about take Lad McConkey instead of was Xavier Worthy was that one. Those are all fair points, but it is a little more difficult where they've been for a number of different reasons. And Jeff, I'm curious, because ChadO'Shea, the one other part of his resume is that he's been a passing game coordinator. Like, will we see that part, or is because that title's already taken in the Chiefs organization? We know Andy Reid ultimately is the guy who has his fingerprints all over this offense, but could we see him have an effect on more than just the position of wide receiver? Do you think there's any chance that he comes in with some fresh ideas on how this offense should work from a wide receiver and passing performance.
Yeah, I would expect that, and I feel like Andy Reid's been pretty consistent throughout the years. Sam would know better than me, but talking about just really wanting to have a lot of guys involved in that process and listening to different voices and different ideas, and partly because he wants those assistants to get more shine and have more opportunities to be considered as head coaching candidates down the road. But he also believes in the value of that, and so I would certainly expect a guy like O'Shea to be involved in that and to offer some things up. And the thing that I like about O'Shea, because he spent most of his time with New England, is that when you think about their receiving core when he was there and the way Josh McDaniels, who was the offensive coordinator most of the time there, the way they approached it, they had a lot of different guys who were not big name players, but they were very effective in the roles that they played in. They were very disciplined in how they ran things. And there was an expectation that Tom Brady had about where guys were going to be at the right time. That stuff is important to this team now because this offense has relied so much on improvisation from the quarterback and magical plays, and he's been amazing at it. That's starting to change now. And so you need to know guys are going to understand the importance of getting off the line of scrimmage, getting to their spots, making sure the quarterback is on time with the ball. And he's going to demand that of people. And I think sometimes you can get lazy in your habits as a receiver because okay, if it breaks down, we'll just make some shit up and just we'll make it happen. And they can't play that way anymore because one, the quarterback may not be able to do it, but the other part of it too is that the receivers aren't developing because of it, right? They're developing how to be off schedule, but you got to be on schedule now moving forward.
I think it's a great point. Do you see him getting any fingerprints on how the passing game works, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I know that the people are going to push back on this. From what I hear about the way those meetings go, it truly is a collaborative room. When you talk about offensive game planning with the head coach, the offensive coordinator, the pass game coordinator, and the positional coaches, like there are ideas that get thrown around that are accepted. This isn't just a dictatorship where Andy Reid says, this is what we're doing. I mean, there's other guys that install game plans. But of course, Andy Reid has the control of that room, and the decision ultimately rests with him, and the responsibility ultimately rests with him. But every voice that they brought in for a reason, and they're like you don't bring in new coaches and then silence their voices in that room.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. We'll talk about the offensive line. Esa Pole, is he going to factor into the starting unit? We'll do it after you hear from Italian Delight. Italian Delight was the first restaurant to bring true New York-style pizza to Kansas City almost 50 years ago. They sell whole pies or pizza by the slice, or enjoy their classic strombolis, calzones, and sausage rolls. Sandwich lovers, check out their lineup of hot and cold subs, the combo, the meatball, or the Philly cheesesteak, just to name a few. And don't forget the pasta. Their famous lasagna and classic chicken Alfredo always hit the spot. If you're hungry for lunch, check out their daily lunch specials, starting at under $10. Italian Delight can even cater your next work function or party. Dine in, carry out, or delivery, it's Italian Delight. Located just 3 minutes east of Kansas Speedway at 8145 State Ave in KCK. Check out the menu and order online at ItalianDelightKS.com. Kansas City's own Italian Delight. Gann Asphalt and Concrete is looking to grow their team. If you have heavy construction foreman experience with heavy equipment, asphalt or concrete labor, or just want to learn a new trade, contact Gann Asphalt and Concrete to join their team today. Top of the market pay, company provided insurance, and paid time off and holiday pay are just a few of the great reasons to join Gann's expanding team. Learn more about this great opportunity with Gann at GannAsphalt.com/careers. That's GannAsphalt.com/careers. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lots. All right, let's talk about the offensive line part of the equation. Sam, we've seen Esa Pole getting some run out there. Jalen Moore making $15 million APY. And the expectation was that when Jawan Taylor was out, Jalen Moore would be in. That is still the case, or no? Do you think Esa Pole is in a real fight for getting that starting right tackle job?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a competition in training camp. I mean, they both have played with the ones. So I think the idea of putting it in both of these players' minds is a really good idea. I think it's a good thing that Jalen Moore knows that this is not just his job. I think it's a good thing that Esa Pole thinks that he's got a chance to win that job. I actually think the Chiefs should use this and apply it elsewhere on the roster as well. Safety comes to mind. I mean, the the entire depth of the cornerback position comes to mind. Defensive end, opposite George Karlaftis comes to mind. I think that the Chiefs could really benefit from having more position battles in camp this year.
Yeah. What do you make of Esa Pole's name being thrown out there at right tackle, Jeff?
I like it. And I think there is, look, if they could turn him into a competent option at that position, it would be a huge boost to this team as far as roster building, right? And I think about Andrew Wiley back in the day, and he was able to become a starter and go play and get a big deal with Washington. If he could become that kind of player for you, now you can focus your draft efforts and free agency efforts on other players. I mean, they're obviously very deliberate and very committed to making sure they're spending as much and doing as much to help protect Patrick Mahomes as they can, which they should. But you don't need to have another high-priced option on this offensive line. To discover a player who could actually come in that you found, that you let go and you got back, would be huge. And so I'm not against that at all, because we talked about them possibly looking at offensive tackle in the draft, and they obviously didn't go that route. But this would be a huge thing. I think they know that. I think whatever happens, we can all assume Jalen Moore's not going to be back here next year, given his price tag. But to know you've got someone in the building who can take that job, you got to find that out right now.
Yeah, I mean, if Esa Pole did become the right tackle, you would have gotten your starting left tackle and right tackle in one draft.
Yep.
Yeah, I think
undrafted, obviously. But
right.
Draft,
one off season,
yeah.
one rookie session, for lack of a better term. I heard somebody say, well, if he ends up winning the starting job, your offensive line is set for 4 or 5 years. No, that's incorrect. I know you'd like to think that, but you're already into year 3 when it comes to Kingsley Suamataia. So, like, the time to extend him, and we can go back to what we talked about with Trey Smith. If you want to extend Kingsley Suamataia, the time to do that is at the end of this year, right? That's when you're going to get the cheapest value. So he would get expensive. Now you can play it out to the end and then be talking about transitioning him or dealing with him going to free agency. But there's 5 guys that take up the offensive line. I mean, you don't want them all. You don't need a 2022 draft class where the whole offensive line comes up as free agents at the same time. See the Cleveland Browns and what they've had to do. And so, yeah, it would be great because they're paying so much money for so many other guys that they really do need. I mean, I think they almost have to have a guy like Esa Pole win that job. I mean,
you've got to find offensive linemen, to Jeff's point, because Andrew Wiley's a good example. Nick Allegretti in the 7th round ended up starting 2 Super Bowls for him.
Trey Smith in the 6th before he got expensive.
Like, you do have to find cheap labor somewhere on your offensive line. You cannot give out another high-priced deal and say, oh, well, Trey Smith's deal will be expiring, and so therefore Kingsley Suamataia can slide in right behind him. Like, you've got to find cheap labor on the offensive line somewhere.
Is Esa Pole better than Jalen Moore? Is he better than Jawan Taylor, Jeff?
We don't know that yet. He's got to be out there and got to be a bigger sample size. I mean, the cost is better right now. Yeah. I mean, that's enticing. But, yeah, he's got to be out there and doing it and see if he can last. I mean, it's always appealing and seductive to get excited about a player just because you see a little bit and you see some glimmers. But as we've learned over time at that position as well, there's a lot of things that can happen over the course of a season that take that shine off of a guy.
The Chiefs are kicking the tires on L'Jarius Sneed. Sam, what do we look at this? Is this a sign that there's already some problems with the young defensive backs? Is this the security blanket that wasn't there in 22 when Steve Spagnuolo had to play the young players? Like, what do you view L'Jarius Sneed being looked at by the Chiefs?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think it makes sense to at least see where he's at. We already know where the Chiefs cornerback room is. I mean, who do you consider the 4th cornerback on this roster, for example? And that's, by the way, giving Christian Fulton the 3rd spot. Like, who is the 4th cornerback on this roster? Kaiir Elam? And I say outside, I mean outside corner, because I think you've got Chris Roland Wallace playing on the inside. You've got the kid from Miami that set out last year playing on the inside. You got Kennedy playing on the inside, but like, you need a 4th outside guy as well. And I just don't know who that is right now. But I guess I'd put it this way. the medicals are going to mean everything here, because the medicals were an issue in trying to trade L'Jarius Sneed 2 years ago. I mean, the Chiefs had a deal. The Minnesota Vikings were very interested in L'Jarius Sneed and backed out because of the medicals. There were other teams who weren't interested at all because of the medicals. Do you guys remember his last year, which was the whole great year that he had? Did he miss like a dozen practices in training camp because his knee was swelling? And there was no real explanation for when's he going to be back. Oh, we're not worried about it. It's like he's missed 12 practices up here because of his knee. And that hasn't gone away. Like, that has been a structural thing for a while.
Well, and I think they nursed him along as far as not practicing him. I mean, I think he got a lot of veteran days watching practice, and I think 100%. That's one of the things that blew up in Tennessee was there was like you got to practice to play, and it's like, yeah, it doesn't really work for me. And I think they exacerbated the situation. The Chiefs have had success at nursing that along. Jeff, I think the question is, is that what you want to do? Is be nursing along? You want to go into it knowing this guy has to have special treatment.
Yeah, and he's a couple years older now and more tread on the tires, and you don't know.
Not much more tread. He only played 12 games.
That's true. On the Rashee Rice plan, exactly. But no, I think I mean, you have to be careful. I mean, you'd be asking him to be in a much smaller role for this team. But then the flip side of it is, you probably could go out and find somebody younger at a cheaper cost to do the same thing. And so they caught lightning in a bottle with him a couple of years ago, and it's hard to do that twice. And so it does make sense because you know him, you know where his head's at. He is a veteran. He'd be in a room with not that many guys he'd be the oldest guy in the room, right? By far, right? I think Christian Fulton's probably only 26, 27. Yeah. But yeah, I think that there is a lot of questions about that. I don't think it's like a slam dunk type, come on back here and we'll make it work. It's all from his knee to his age to everything else, the role. It's a lot of things that make me pessimistic about it working out.
Sam, how about the Spags part of the equation? Like, are we going to see Mansour Delane out there all the time? Are we going to see Peter Woods? Are we going to see, R. Mason Thomas, at least those top three guys? I mean, do they have to play? Or, have they stripped all the options of where he could go? Did you like what you heard from Steve Spagnuolo and talking about those young players?
Yeah, I mean, I'd put it there, which is what other choice does he have? I mean, look at the depth chart of this roster and tell me who else is going to play if these three guys aren't going to play. I thought in listening to him talk, he was gushing over Peter Woods the most of the three of them because between those of us in the room, we asked him some variation of talking about what he's seen from these guys since they've been in the building. And I asked him that about Mansour Delane, and his focus on Mansour Delane was what he liked about him coming out of the draft. Same thing about R. Mason Thomas. With Peter Woods, it was what he's done since he's been there, and which was, hey, you can just look at his eyes and, man, he gets it. He's paying attention. He gets it. And I'm not saying that means the other guys aren't. I'm saying he made a point to say that about Peter Woods, to where I think he really sees a place for Peter Woods. And I'll let you guys speak to this because I also was interested in the whole what is my type?
Yeah.
I didn't know I had a type. What is
Lebo?
What is
Lebo? Yeah.
What is my type? Yeah.
Yeah. What well, go ahead. What was your reaction when Todd Lebo asked, about, hey, R. Mason Thomas doesn't really look like your type of guy. And he shut it down. He goes, well, let's answer that question first. What is my type? What did you take away from that?
Well, I mean, I can see my friend who's dated like 9 straight blondes and say, yes, you do have a type. Like, the history tells you that Steve Spagnuolo has a type. Like, this is the shortest arm length guy they've had at edge. Peter Woods is the same at defensive tackle. He's the lightest guy they've had at defensive tackle. Like, these are not the types that have plugged in and given Steve Spagnuolo over the years. So, look, every defensive coordinator in America would rather have a guy who's 6'5" than a guy who's 6'1". I mean, but it'll be interesting. The proof will be in the pudding for whether or not he puts him on the field.
What do you think? I'd like to think I like good football players. That was his. He did have kind of an issue with that idea.
He bristled at it. He was a little bit annoyed.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. I mean, he jokingly so, but yeah, he definitely bristled at the fact that he only can have these certain guys, these certain pieces fit into the larger puzzle. That it's actually, I just like good football players. And I will say the other part that comes across is he came across as very approving of going a different way.
Right.
And he might bristle at the fact that it is a different way, but he seemed totally on board with the fact that he just likes these players regardless of whether or not they mimic some players he's had in the past.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, well, first thing I would say is there is certainly a need for him to play these guys early, and I fully expect them to. I do believe there's always a theory in football that the farther you are away from the football, the easier it is to play. And so you think about a corner, think about an edge rusher. Those guys should be more impactful in year one because they're not going to be asked to be as heady about what Spagnuolo wants to run, the complexity of his defense. Woods is interesting because of the size disparity, the difference in skill set. But I was thinking about just how much this has become a league where guards are so important to running an offense and trying to stop interior pass rushing. So having a guy who can be quicker is probably important, right? You just can't have someone go in there and bang or whatever. And so maybe he's excited about that aspect of Woods, that he could actually be somebody who is quick enough to get inside and be a Warren Sapp type presence within the defensive line, which they have not had. But the bottom line here is they got to, just as well on offense, they got to find more stars on defense. And when historically, going back to the Giants, to the Saints, to here, when Spagnuolo's had his best defenses, he's had some dudes out there who were playing at a pretty high all-pro level and at different levels of the defense, especially up front. And so
every defense is better when the D-line can win.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think as highly thought of, and rightfully so, Steve Spagnuolo is thought of in this town, he probably deserves even more credit, right? Because they haven't been getting to the quarterback yet. They've still been putting up, pretty good defensive numbers. So, I think there's probably a little bit of like, hey, you see what I've been working with? And I'm getting it done, and you're going to question who I do and don't get it done with? Like, come on now. I like Sam's point. Everybody'd rather have 6'5" than 6'1". That's one of the things that Bill Belichick, quietly, it's not talked about all the time, but one of his things, he and Nick Saban, I think when they did the bit about the two of them, there was a little documentary type show put together. It's like big people beat little people. Like at the end of the day, when you get down to, we can go through all these different things, but then at the end, which do you want, the big guy or the little guy? I want the big guy, right? And so I think that's just, natural. And if you can find him, great, go get him. The question is, are you just taking a guy who's big and sucks and putting him out there over a guy who doesn't look the part? And I think playing Mike Dana speaks to his willingness to, because that wasn't a highly drafted guy and he didn't fit all the length and measurables, and yet he put him out there and was productive with them at times. I think that's there. Which one of these three rookies plays the most, Sam?
If you're just going by snaps, I think it has to be Delane because of the position he plays. That's not a rotational piece.
Second?
I think, look, it's super early, and I know you recognize that, but I want to put that out there before I answer. I would probably say Peter Woods.
Okay. And then third, our Mason Thomas.
I think Kennedy's going to play too, though. I think Kennedy's going to play too, although I think he's got a battle there. We know that Chris Rowland-Wallace can play the slot as well, but I think Kennedy can play too.
Same way for you, Jeff. Delane going to be out there all the time. That he better be, right. That's number one.
Yeah. What did you guys think of? So we asked Dave Tobe about it because it has been reality that Mansour Delane has been part of specials as well. He's been part of the kickoff. He's worked in and look, I get people's panic about the sixth overall pick. Playing specials. I don't think it's a bad idea to have them recognize some more roles. Some players have certainly talked about the way specials changes the way they see the field. But it's interesting. I think if nothing else, it's interesting that he's been part of that mix.
You can side me with the other people. It's terrifying.
Yeah. As a gunner, is that they're talking about?
No, he's played in some kickoff specials again, there's certain formation stuff I can't talk about. It's part of the rules. But Dave Tobe has talked about the fact that yes, he has played on part of some of the kickoff stuff.
Yeah, I don't
Terrifying.
like that.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't.
I think it's hard. My point in bringing it up is I think it's hard to classify it as like something that every top 10 pick is doing
Right.
Across the league.
Yeah, it's terrifying. All right, so Delane will play all the time. Better play all the time. Peter Woods, R. Mason Thomas.
Oh, Woods would be number 2. I think it depends on Omar Norman Lott's health and availability as far as Woods, but I would think he would be the second one. I just figured that the size of R. Mason Thomas, he just can't be out there on a regular basis. Certainly not on rundown, so he'd be more a situational guy anyway. But yeah, I think Delane, given all the hype, all the talk about what he can be and how sold they were on him early, he's got to be a dominant presence on your defense from day one.
Thomas, being a situational guy, pick 40. You will see my hand in the air as to this was a mistake.
Yeah.
If he's whatever it takes to grow him into being a guy that plays. I know no defensive lineman plays all the snaps, and you want to be able to rotate guys, but he better be out there. I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is not a. Yeah, I remember when they took the linebacker from Clemson.
Dorian O'Daniel.
Yeah, his first draft, they took him in the 3rd round, and I'm like, and they started talking about, well, he could do this, he could do that. They were kind of equating him to a safety, and I'm like, that's not a good sign. Mason Thomas better be out there in all pass rush situations, minimum. He needs to be out there for sure. Listen, you can always support the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast by supporting our great sponsors like Gann Asphalt and Concrete. They've been solving concrete problems for more than 30 years in Kansas City. Parking lot problems, been solving them for more than 30 years, whether you need new concrete work, parking lot repave, crack filling, seal coating, or full asphalt installation. Their experienced crews handle it all. Get on the schedule right now. It's booking up fast. GannAsphalt.com. That's GannAsphalt.com. And lunch specials starting at under $10. You can get them at Italian Delight, just a few miles east of Kansas Speedway on State Avenue, 8145 State Ave. The first to bring true New York style pizza to Kansas City was Italian Delight. Get there today. Remember, lunch specials starting at under $10. For Jeff Chadiha, for Sam McDowell, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.